On this episode of the John1911 Podcast, let's talk about Larry Vickers, White Steyr AUG, Serpa stories, and being nervous about the 320.
Okay, good afternoon, everybody. This is Kraken and Marky, and this is episode 321 of the John1911 Podcast. Today is Monday, November the 6th, 12:11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We're all trying to survive post fallback time change. And it's been a hot minute since we've actually had a podcast with anyone else other than me, and we hadn't had a podcast in almost a month with all the construction going on over here at the Armory. Well, I'm not even in the Armory right now. There is no Armory right now. So anyway, long time no talk, Kraken. How you been?
Oh, I'm doing pretty good. I've been fighting a little bit of a nasty respiratory infection, so if I happen to cough during this, I apologize. I'll try and keep it to a minimum, but otherwise, just enjoying the fall weather and yeah, got a few new projects to talk about here later in the podcast. I think are pretty interesting, so
Oh yeah,
looking forward to it.
you were complaining about one gun, and I wanted to definitely talk. I forgot about that. I definitely want to talk about that.
Yeah.
This is really breaking the fourth wall, but just so you remember, because I don't know if you've used it, or maybe you have. On the right side of your screen, you'll see you see the microphone symbol on the right
hmm
side of your screen. If you tap that, it'll mute your microphone. So if you need to, I don't know, like cough up a lung, just just tap that son of a bitch.
Yep, I got
Yeah,
it. I got it all
yeah,
queued up, ready to go. If
yeah.
I die in the middle of the podcast, well, it'll make for some interesting comments.
Yeah, we were joking, well, what would Kraken do to help promote the podcast? Maybe he'll die on pod and we'll get a bunch of sympathy or something. I don't know. Uh, it's like, oh my God. Like, hey, do you remember the guy who, that reminds me, do you remember the story of it's actually not that far from you, I don't think. The guy he's a YouTuber, but he's I don't know if he's an airplane guy or a parachute guy. I wasn't sure exactly what his genre was, but he had some little Piper whatever little bullshit airplane, and he just happened to have a bunch of GoPros bolted to the outside of the airplane. He had cameras inside the airplane, cameras on the wings, looking at the cockpit or the fuselage, and he miraculously caught on film that he was having engine trouble and had to bail out of the airplane and got it all on video. And everybody was looking at this video, pilots and the FAA, and they determined that he just faked the whole thing just for the clicks. Do you remember that
Oh
dude?
wow, I did not hear about that one, but that's pretty extreme just to get some clicks.
Yeah, and the plane ended up, and he was in a pretty remote area, and the plane crashed, obviously. And it's a small miracle that he didn't start a giant forest fire, apparently. And there was a lot of speculation like that looks fake. This is and pilots were like, he didn't do this, he didn't do that, he didn't try this, he didn't try that, he just and all these different things, and because they could literally see inside the cockpit, and they could see outside, like the camera was on the wing looking back at the airplane. You could see the propellers, you could see the whole airplane, you could see the engine running, like you could see all. It was like a movie, and turns
Yeah.
out it actually he did it all deliberately. Well, the FAA ended up doing an investigation, and he surrendered his license forever. He's no longer allowed to fly airplanes, and a bunch of other stuff. And yeah, he did that for the gram. So, or for, yeah, I mean for whatever it is. So, considering our space lately and federal agencies knocking on doors of gun tubers, let's not push our luck. so, so, so
I'll do a
with
lot of things for the podcast, but I promise you, I will not jump out of a perfectly good airplane and let it crash for a couple of clicks.
yeah. So I don't know.
You have my word.
Would you import a FAMAS rifle as a law letter dealer sample to be used by your SWAT team?
I'm going to be really honest. I have had an interest in some of that kind of stuff, but there are so many rules and regulations with the NFA Act, and I just it just looks like something would be good for me to just stay away from. I just don't feel like having to worry about following all the rules and crossing all the T's and dotting all the I's. The guys that do it, that's great. Uh, just not a space I really felt comfortable getting into myself. That's kind of why I haven't went to a suppressor even.
Yeah, we'll get you in the suppressors. We'll get you. Cans are easy. The thing is with what I'm alluding to is the Larry Vickers situation. I'm much more up to speed on it now. Primarily thanks to Mongo. He's really kind of brought a lot of the data to my mind, so I can kind of be informed on what happened. So, and also to keep in mind, what you were just saying, the ATF or BATFE doesn't issue FFLs just for personal enjoyment. It has to be a money-making endeavor. And it appears, my understanding is what Larry Vickers did. And, on the last podcast, I will reiterate. I mean, my heart is just totally broken over what's happened to Larry Vickers. I mean, just, there's not a whole lot of people in the gun space that I would personally, just like almost irrationally really respect. I mean, just like really just think highly of. And I say that even as, I mean, I've met Larry. I'm not saying we were friends, but we've definitely met. He wouldn't know who I am, like, from right now from John1911, but if you were to ask him, something in the past and be like, remember this person? He's like, no. Remember this? And be like, remember this? And he'd be like, oh, fuck, that guy? Like, and I'm going to say, I never found Larry to be exceedingly friendly. But, I'm not a Delta Force, space shuttle doorship, gunner, whatever they call that stuff. But, as a gun person, I just really think highly of what he's kind of done. He's really, like he and Ian McCollum really did a lot. I mean, for in this space, and what's happened to him is just really, really kind of hit me hard. Now that I got all that out of the way, let's get into it a little bit because there's been a lot going on. So, if if I understand it, what Larry has pled to were two things. The first one is Larry is some kind of, I don't know if he's an 07 manufacturer with an SOT, which means he can, like do machine guns, or what kind of, he's some kind of SOT, I suspect, with he's got some kind of FFL, an 07 or maybe it's an 08 importer. I'm not sure what he's got, probably an 07. And what he did, and he was not the only person that did it, is he coordinated with a couple of very small police departments. I think one police department had one officer, and then another police department may have had as few as 7 officers. And so, very small rural police departments that don't have tactical teams at all. Like they don't have, a lot of them probably don't even have any types of NFA items. I mean, they could, but they're not like even with part-time tactical teams or regional tactical teams. But what you can do is, there's no new machine guns after 1986, but there's a carve out in that law for law letter demos. So, like let's say I don't want to say a police department because I don't want to even associate anybody's name to this. Let's say Gotham City Police Department was thinking about switching from Colt Colt M16s to HK 416 guns. And so what they would do is they would contact a dealer who deals in machine guns, their law enforcement dealer, and they would say, we're interested in this 416 fully automatic gun. We'd like to T&E test and evaluate some. Well, the machine gun dealer doesn't have any of those in stock, probably. So they get a letter from Gotham Police Department saying, we wish to demo these guns and look at them for a contract to buy them. So we would like our cadre to have some examples so we could shake them down. This is normal stuff. The FFL dealer goes to the manufacturer and says, I need a couple samples, and here's the law letter proving that they're interested in possibly shopping. There's no commitment to buy. But money has to be spent and letters have to be signed. And then dealer takes guns to Gotham Police Department. They go through their process of either accepting or rejecting, or going what they want to do. And it's a way for machine gun companies to sell and make money, and dealers, and keep it all legal. And the ATF can monitor all of this, so stuff doesn't end up out just floating out there. Cop guns or post 86 guns just end up floating around. And so that's why, listener at home, if you're not familiar with any of this, if you've ever looked at machine guns for sale online, you will see two categories. You will see, whatever the machine gun is, it'll say post dealer sample, and it'll say, and then there'll be another category. It'll be law letter required or no law letter required. And so the law letter required is what I just described. Now, what can happen is, let's say Gotham Police Department, and I'm the FFL, machine gun dealer. Gotham Police Department decides, yeah, we don't like these 416s. They're too expensive. They're this, they're that, whatever. Well, the deal never goes through. Gotham Police Department doesn't get to keep those guns. Those guns are on my books as the FFL dealer, as the machine gun dealer, and they're just on my books. Now, let's say I go out of business or there's some other disposition. You just don't destroy these guns. They can be sold to other dealers. And so that's how these dealer sample law letter guns end up being dealer sample no law letter, because they were used for a thing, and then it's just stuck in our inventory. Like, I can't sell these to the civilian market. I can't do anything with it. And so maybe I can transfer them off to another maybe there's another FFL in Southern California, then that police department they would be interested in the 416. They have a law letter, so maybe they could get these guns, and instead of getting it from HK's like, send them to that guy. I'm being a little specious here, but that's kind of how all of this works. What Larry Vickers did was he coordinated with two very small police departments, I think a one-man department and maybe a seven-man department, that don't even have tactical teams, got them to sign law letters to not only get post-dealer sample law letter guns, basically machine guns, but they were historically significant or rare guns. And the number one example seems to be, they caught my eye, was a French FAMAS rifle. And had it imported into the United States. That's how they got this gun in, because they were like, we have a law letter, and if the machine gun dealer is overseas or the gun is overseas, ATF goes, oh, we got a law letter. The guns are coming from H&K in Germany, or the gun's coming in from, it's a FAMAS gun, and somebody overseas has it, and they got this gun in somehow, and it got by ATF, which is fine, as a dealer sample for a police department. And you and I both know there is no way in hell that there's some police department out there that is going to demo a FAMAS rifle, to use it. They're like, oh, we'll take 50 of them for our tactical team. When even the French are moving away from the FAMAS rifle. I mean, that kind of stuff does happen. Like, we've seen police departments that were issued SIG 551s or 550 variants, and those are all imported in. Like, we've seen this kind of stuff, so it's not impossible. That's kind of how it happened. But then what happened is they got these guns in, and then apparently in communications, some kind of electronic communications, they're all talking to each other, and they just went ahead and been like, immediately sold them to other dealers or put them in their personal collections. They never did demos for the police department. They never even did a fake demo. And then the police department's like, well, you didn't tell us, Larry, that it was going to be this much money. You didn't tell us that this gun was French. And, like we couldn't get parts for it. Like they didn't even like try, apparently reading the documents, they didn't even try to do like a even some fake bullshit law enforcement demo. And they just went ahead and they're all talking amongst each other and they just started trading these guns around. So that's the first thing he pled guilty to, as far as I'm able to get my hands around it right now. Second thing he pled guilty to was in 2014. In 2014, Russia did their annexation of Crimea. That's where they're all fighting over there, in Ukraine right now. Like whenever you're seeing stories in the news about missiles hitting Russian naval ships in Sevastopol, which is a naval base in Crimea, which is the home of the Black Sea Fleet. Well, kind of, not anymore. But that's all where that's happening. And they did this whole, they just annexed it. Well, Barack Obama, we put the sanctions in place, and they were targeted sanctions at the time. They're wholesale sanctions now that the war started, but they were targeted sanctions at the time against certain Russian individuals and Russian companies. And one of those companies, since it was kind of this military maneuver, is Kalashnikov concern. And that is why, like, you don't see Kalashnikov, like, really operating in the U.S., because they're on the sanctions list and they're an entity in Russia. And there's been some movement to, like, do some stuff and, like, maybe create a whole new entity that isn't really Russian, maybe based in Florida. And it seems like Larry Vickers might have been involved in that. But specifically, what was happening was, if you remember, there were videos of Larry going to Russia and shooting like the AN-94 and maybe some of the Spetsnaz. Like they were doing like all these confidence drills, and I haven't checked the dates on this, but if you're in the gun community, you know these videos. And I think these videos happened after the Crimea annexation. But Larry went over there and did some stuff, and apparently Larry worked out a deal. So for a couple things, he was negotiating with Kalashnikov in some capacity for them to set up operations. And we knew Kalashnikov was trying to do this in Florida. And that's, they can get a carve out, cut out, whatever. And this is pre-war. These were targeted sanctions. He was kind of involved in that. Additionally, he apparently secured ownership, or had commitments to secure ownership, not only for himself, but other members of this group, of pretty rare Russian guns that were in Russia. And they were going to, quote, hold these guns for Larry and his friends and his associates until the day the sanctions are over. And then the second that they can import them, boom, they're going to come in and Larry's going to get some of these guns in the U.S. And then the third thing is, Larry, I guess, had some rare Russian guns, or hard to get Russian guns, and he was coordinating and reaching out and talking to people at Kalashnikov concern in Russia trying to get spare parts, and may have succeeded in getting spare parts in from Russia for some gun that was broken. Now, the problem is when there's sanctions, you're into like economic benefit, or who's the beneficial person or entity. And if you're conducting business with somebody or someone who's on a sanction list, you're benefiting them. So you're in direct violation of sanctions. And so what's interesting is I don't know, maybe somebody does. I don't know what did Larry in first. I don't know if Larry got on the radar with the SOT law letter thing. And maybe in an audit, people were like, "Huh," and then they found the Russian shit, or if the sanction stuff somehow popped up on somebody's radar at State Department, and they started looking, and then they started, oh wait, this guy's got an SOTFFL, and then they started looking at his activity, and they're like, wait a minute, and like that did him in. But I suspect one beget the other, and that is kind of where he ended up. Now, my understanding is Larry pled to two counts. Both felonies. I don't know. I don't recall what he was initially charged with. I suspect it was probably more, but he pled the 2 felonies. And what has happened is everybody's super confused because since this news broke with Larry, I've seen ads for Larry planning on running training classes with firearms. Larry Vickers posted a picture today, this probably 2 hours ago, of a rare 1911 going back to his Delta days, and makes a reference to it in one of his Larry Vickers 1911 books. And the photograph is kind of dark, and it looks to me like it's a photograph maybe he took with a cell phone in his house. And so that begets a question. Larry Vickers has not made it clear to anybody, or any other entity has made it clear to us, if he's a convicted felon, he should be under disability. Is Larry Vickers in or out of the gun business? Is Larry Vickers in or out of the training business? Is Larry Vickers no longer even allowed to hold a gun? But the way he's kind of operating and he's saying things online, he's kind of talking about the future. And it's like, well, is there more to going on here? Or are there shoes to drop? Like, is there some kind of deal in place where Larry's able to keep functioning as, as someone who can have firearms? Because we do know that he was his home was, or whatever wherever his facility or his business was, I believe it was out of his house, was raided, and the ATF scooped up a whole bunch of guns. And I believe that most of those guns were probably, dealer sample, class 3, whatever machine guns. They may have been on his class 3, it may have been on his FFL bound book, not his personal ownership. But subsequently to that, and we all saw this in the high-end community, we saw a shit ton of personal guns at Larry's after the raid, a shit ton of personal guns, rare guns, handguns, rifles, nothing full auto, being sold at various like in particular there was an auction house or a company, a dealer in Texas that was dealing with a lot of these guns, and we even bid on some of them. And it's like, looking back on it now, we all thought it was like, Larry's sick, Larry's got cancer, we don't know what's going on, maybe his license lapsed, he was raided by the ATF, sucks, you sons of bitches. And then here we are a year, 2 years later, there's pleadings for felonies. All this stuff on his bound book was definitely scooped up. We've seen a ton of guns of his that have been liquidated. And he isn't letting anybody know anything about what the hell's going on with his status or what he's planning on doing. But he seems to be portraying himself on the internet as if he's still in the firearms business. Now, Kraken, I'm going to go ahead, and you're not ready for this, but I'm going to kind of prepare it to you. Can you summarize for the listener a post Larry Vickers made on Facebook 2 nights ago about, what has happened to him since then?
Yeah, it was kind of a basic explanation that he had pleaded out to a couple of charges. He brought up his relationship with Wilson Combat Firearms, and it looked to me like he was rather personally disappointed because it appears that Wilson may have to possibly cut ties with him over these felony convictions. And it gets really complicated when you start getting into business relationships, especially ones that seem to go back as far as they do. And we don't really know how the relationship is structured. So it's hard to say, maybe who's right, who's wrong, who has the moral high ground. But it kind of looked like he was somewhat trying to explain what happened and somewhat trying to explain his disappointment with Wilson. But again, not knowing how things are structured, it's, it gets very complicated and messy.
His
So
his
we
his
really
po-
can't form an opinion, I
his
believe.
his post said, and again, we're getting this from Larry Vickers. I'm not getting this from Wilson. I have no insider information. His post said he was disappointed because Wilson Combat informed him that they were severing ties or severing the relationship. He made some comment that basically as of October 31st, they were ending their professional relationship and Wilson was ending it. And it seemed like he put this up and it was sour grapes. And I certainly can see that. And there's two sides to this that I think needs to be at least stated. We're going to state on this podcast because we have to be intellectually honest with some of this. Okay. Like some people were taking the position, well, gosh, they should have, they're friends of Larry's, they should have stood by him. It's like, well, I mean, or like someone was like, they should stand by him until, like at least, till it's all over. And it's like, well, wait a minute. They've apparently stood by him for 2 years. And and here's the thing, there is no way, like when we all found out that Larry Vickers, like just like a couple weeks ago, pled guilty to a bunch of felonies, and we're like, holy shit, I'm willing to bet money that Wilson knew this was coming 2 years ago. I'm willing to bet, I don't know this, I'm willing to bet that there's probably some items, some I would call NFA items, that were manufactured by Wilson and they were legally transferred to Larry and they're on Larry's bound book. And when the ATF comes in and scoops up all of Larry's shit on his bound book because they're seeing discrepancies on how all of his shit's running, they start doing forward traces. And if there's Wilson shit in there, I guarantee you Wilson got a call from the ATF, a forward trace audit, and they're like, we want to see the conditions on which you transferred this shit to Larry and why. I'm willing to guarantee that happened. And if that did happen, I would be quite sure that somebody who works over at the, I would call the FFL NFA compliance department at Wilson Combat, and I guarantee you there is a person that does that, is quite pissed the fuck off. Okay? Now, the other side, as a business person, look, I'm not a ninja. I'm not a Delta Force operator. I'm not a door kicker. I'm not even a space shuttle door gunner. I'm a business person who happens to be a gun guy. And from a business perspective, and the business person, one of the fundamental problems we've had in our society the past couple of years is every fucking business has felt compelled to stake out a position on every goddamn thing publicly that is outside the purview of their business. Okay? Like, like why would a software company stake out a position on the war in Gaza? Or why would a bank stake out a position on gay adoption? You know what I mean? Like at some point you're like, what business are you in? I'm in the business to sell soap. All right, we're in the business to sell soap, so shut the fuck up. You could easily, as a business person, make an argument. It's like, okay, Wilson Combat and Larry Vickers goes way back. Bill Wilson and Larry Vickers go way back for a long, long time. Longer than a lot of people listening to this podcast are alive. Okay? And this is terrible. And it's uncomfortable. And there's all of this intellectual property, trademark stuff, relationship between Wilson and Larry Vickers. There's magazines, there's limited edition guns, there's all of this stuff where they're selling the things and they're paying money to Larry, and there's some kind of financial relationship above and beyond the guns that I've theoretically mentioned are on bound books between these two FFLs. Okay? As a business person, if I am at the head of a company and like one of our superstar basically influencers is now super jammed up you know, with the government. Am I going to come out and like cut this guy loose? As a business person, I would not do that. I mean, I'm not saying that that the person would no longer work here. I'm saying I wouldn't stake out a public position. I'd be like, let's just let sleeping dogs lie. Okay, just keep writing the checks, keep selling the stuff. No more promotional videos, obviously. This person can't come into our building. This person can't handle our products. We can't do any more stuff. But there's IP in place. Let's just keep putting the stuff out there. Okay, just keep sending the money over. We're not going to do any more. We're not going to do whatever. It is entirely possible that that is what Wilson Combat wanted to do. But they told Larry, they're like, hey, just so you know, we're kind of in a bind here. We've also been wrapped up in this bound book issue with some of these items, because I'm sure Larry's got NFA items from them. And they got the call and they got forward traced on it. And, they're like, we just want to let you know kind of where where we're at here. And we're going to we're going to do what we're going to do. I would think that would be what they had planned on. And then Larry decides to get all ass hurt and writes a letter and basically outs Wilson for cutting him loose. Now, I don't know if this is what happened, but I think it's a real possibility. And if that's true, I think that's a pretty shitty thing to do on Larry's part. I think Larry needs to try to understand that everyone else is also trying to navigate these waters. And I think Larry taking this public, if that is what he did, is what is probably doesn't reflect well on Larry. And again, I started this entire podcast basically sucking Larry's dick. Okay? I like Larry. I love Larry. He's an OG for, I mean, like, I am not a Larry hater at all. But this just looks ugly as hell, because you're going to get a lot of kids who don't understand what's going on and what's been happening. And we don't even know. And we're industry professionals. And we're speculating how messy this could be. But then taking it out to the average kid out there who doesn't understand what could possibly be happening and just basically throwing Wilson under the bus, I think was kind of a sour grapes shitty move. That is assuming in defense of Larry that Wilson didn't just pick up the phone one day and go, "You motherfucker, fuck you and the horse you rode in on, you're out." And just treated him like shit and pissed him off. Like, it's a possibility that could have happened as well. But this is a mess. This is a bloody mess. And I'm disappointed. I'm disappointed that Larry put that letter out there. And especially when the entire community is still asking, what the fuck is going on with Larry Vickers? Is he in the goddamn business or is he not? Is he under disability or is he not? Can he own guns or can he not? Does he still own guns or does he not? But he's going to come out with this, the business stuff that's real messy, possibly forward traces and NFA compliance. But he's not even giving everyone the courtesy of kind of illuminating what the hell's going on here. And it just sucks. The whole thing sucks. So, I'm off my soapbox.
I guess kind of the way I look at it, to my knowledge, Larry really has two really public personas. There's his whole military career, which speaks in and of itself. And then after that, he parlayed his experience there into a very successful firearms business venture on several fronts. I hold somebody like Larry Vickers to a lot higher level when it comes to compliance and following the law than I do maybe some guy that got into it and just didn't understand what he was doing and got jammed up by ATF. I would have liked personally to see Larry put out some type of a statement that didn't seem so belligerent and hostile, but more explaining what happened, at least taking some ownership in it and clarifying where he stands right now, or retreating back and just not saying anything at all and saying, I'm going to let things cool down, and then explain to the public where I'm at and what's going on.
If Larry Vickers had gone completely dark, pulled down his advertising for his gun classes, and just kind of went into purgatory for a while, we would all be like, well, maybe Larry's on appeal, maybe he's trying to work out something, maybe there's some kind of deal, maybe there's some cooperation, but we all kind of understand probably what's going on here. But it doesn't make any sense right now that Larry has pled guilty to 2 felonies, one of them a firearms felony, an NFA felony, and he's still running around with guns on the internet, apparently. That makes 0 sense. And so has he worked out some kind of deal? Is he rolled over on somebody? Is he testifying against somebody? Or is he, or the other thing is, look, I gotta be honest here. Is Larry dying of cancer? He just doesn't give a fuck. It's a legitimate, it's tacky and it's ugly to ask that question. But
Yeah.
he's giving us no way to even not go there.
I've got a couple of questions. So one, and I'm not exactly sure how this works, so I might be totally out in left field, but I do wonder if he does possess firearms, if they are in some type of a trust, and that's how he's legal to possess them at this point. And he's pled guilty, but hasn't been fully adjudicated yet. Maybe that might be the loophole why he still has physical possession right now.
The only thing in adjudication that hasn't happened is the sentencing phase. And maybe there's a cooperation condition before sentencing that maybe that's the kicker.
Maybe there's a time frame between now and sentencing where he's got some legal time to, finish the disposition of the rest of his collection. And this is kind of a shitty thing to say.
No. See, the thing is, no, because like on the 4473s, it even says things like, "Are you under indictment?"
Mm-hmm. And another thought I have, and it's really kind of a shitty thing to say, but I think it's a fair statement to make. People that have led a lifestyle that he has, especially in his younger life, are used to being the 1% of the 1%. And I have seen where sometimes they feel like the rules and the laws don't apply to them, and they start coloring outside the lines a little bit, and they get caught. And maybe this is possibly what happened. He thought he was, one step ahead of ATF, and he was used to being able to, color outside the lines a little bit with his military career, and that carried over into his personal life. And he just colored too far outside the lines and got caught. And you're basically stripping him of his life. If somebody came in and took all of my guns and said I could no longer shoot, no longer hunt, no longer fish, that's my life. That would be a big blow to me, and it would be very hard for me to mentally deal with.
But you'd still be able to work.
Yes, I understand.
This is his job.
Exactly. So that's got to be, from a mental standpoint, somebody who is used to basically getting their way and led a life of being told it's okay to color outside the lines because that's how we accomplish a mission. Well, that doesn't always translate into the civilian world. So mentally, who knows where he's at mentally and how he's reconciling, his civilian life crumbling down around him, possibly.
Well, I will say this in his defense, in the statement, which seems to be I think it's the first public statement he's made since his pleading, in his first couple sentences of his statement, and we'll have a copy of it on the website, he did say he took ownership of, he made a reference to big boy rules. It's like, I did it. Big boy rules, I did it. That's what I got to suffer the consequences. But further on in that statement, because you're talking about maybe his mental state, and I had to talk about cancer, and some of this stuff doesn't make sense. This crossed my mind as well. He made a reference to something recently that was, very, like, he made a reference to, like, he went through a really dark period, like, very recently. Okay. And I have no way of knowing what that is. I think most people listening to this podcast have no way of knowing what that is. But if you think about it, some of those dark things could be really dark. And if you're involved and wrapped up and have exposure, that's the best way to put it. If you have exposure to this license that has been jammed, I'm not talking Larry Vickers, I'm talking about his license. It's been jammed up, and all this litigation going on and all these violations, and then there all this other shit going on with it, with Russia. There's a good chance that you, since you have a relationship with him for 30 years, you may know more about what's going on in his personal life than the rest of us could possibly know. And it's entirely possible that Wilson Combat has decided, we got to get the fuck away from this, because this is going to go sideways bad, because there's more going on with Larry than what we even know. Because it's been pretty obvious now, just in the past couple of weeks, there's been a lot more going on with Larry than most of us have known. And if that's true, then there could be more going on with him that we don't know. And maybe that's a defense for, say, someone like Wilson Combat to be like, cut the ties now, before it turns into a call for service to a 911 center. You know what I mean? Like, for something terrible happening, or something, someone doing something terrible to themselves. And, this is, for being such a high profile person, Larry Vickers, maybe he doesn't have the mental capacity or bandwidth to deal with this right now. So there is some defense there. But Larry Vickers needs to do one of two things. He needs to either come out and explain to everyone what's going on, and what's going to happen, and what happened, and what his future looks like. Okay? Or, if he isn't emotionally capable of doing that, or maybe he has restrictions on what he can say or what he can do, because he still needs to cooperate, testify, and, meet the terms of a deal so his sentencing goes his way. But then the other thing he needs to consider doing is getting off the fucking internet. Like, this is so dumb. This is so, everyone in this has been handled so poorly that, as a business person, I'm like, this is crisis management 101. Okay? Shut everything the fuck down and roll out when you're ready. But don't let shit fester. Because if you let shit fester, you get dudes like me on a podcast who have to try to read between the lines and figure out, what does all this mean? Because everybody can't ignore you, because you're still out there, kinda, maybe, possibly. And then you're publishing sour grapes letters about companies that you've had 30-year relationships with. Or what the fuck do you think's going to happen? I'm not saying this to criticize Larry Vickers. I'm saying this as if I was potentially one of his friends. I'd slap him across the fucking face and say, get all your shit off the fucking internet and fix your goddamn life. Because what's going on now is it looks like Larry Vickers is letting this car crash bounce down the highway nonstop, and then he's getting pissed off and he's damaging other relationships that he could very well be fruitful for him if there is a way forward. Or if Larry is totally out of this, if he cannot do anything more in the gun industry, there is no reason why a lot of these companies that have relationships with him, Glock, Wilson, Tango Down, or is it, Blue Force Gear, this is off the top of my head, they could all still send him royalty checks every month or every quarter. But if he turns himself into toxic, radioactive, fallen angel Larry Vickers that nobody can associate with because either professionally the ATF says stay the fuck away from him, or personally he's so toxic. Like, it's like this is a car crash happening here, and I wish somebody would grab the wheel.
Well, if the first words out of your mouth are "fuck you," it's hard to play the martyr role. And the first thing, one of the things that my dad used to tell me is if you find yourself in a deep hole, the first thing to do is to quit digging. So Larry needs to get rid of the shovel, I believe. And this is, in a perfect world, this is how I hope it would work out and how it's playing out behind the scenes, which, again, there's a lot we don't know. But I hope that Larry's outbursts right now are just his reaction to everything that's going on and his inability to deal with it and being overwhelmed right now. And my sincere hope is he reaches out to somebody and gets professional help. On the Wilson front, I understand maybe that they have to publicly say something because there has been such a tight connection for so long.
I haven't checked as of like 2 hours ago, but I have seen no public comments from Wilson about Larry Vickers at all. They haven't reacted to any of that, which I think is smart.
My sincere hope is that Wilson has at least attempted to reach out behind the scenes and try and offer supportive help to Larry if he's willing to accept it, which it appears that he's not at this point. But I hope that at some point he becomes willing to accept whatever help he needs to help him get on with his life and live it the best that he can, and that this doesn't destroy him personally.
Yeah. I mean, like, what's going on with Larry? Like, what's going on with his family? What's going on? Is he still married? Seriously, like, this is terrible. And, there's more to be, more to live for than your gun collection. And, somebody needs to take the wheel with this, and again, I know I've been pretty tough on Larry in this episode, and it'd be easy for somebody to come at me and make me like, I don't like Larry Vickers. Look, I am not kidding. When this first came out, like in the deepest recesses of my lizard brain, I somehow wanted this to be okay. I was like, this is it. This is bullshit. This NFA, this 86 shit, all this is fucked up. They're going to make a martyr out of Larry. We can break all of this. We can get presidential pardons. We can change the rules. We can change all of this because it's finally gone too far. That's what I wanted to have happen in my mind. Even when Larry is sentenced to be put under the prison, I'm thinking we can still save Larry. There's a way. Larry's too big. It's too important. There's been too much sacrifice. So I'm not the guy that's shitting on Larry Vickers. I'm the guy that's looking at this as a business person and as a professional, and I'm like, this is this is being dealt with horrendously, and it's getting worse and worse. And it's not just the letter he wrote. Nothing makes any sense right now. And if Larry's making deals, Larry's doing whatever, he's cooperating, God bless him. I want Larry to come out of this back in the game. And if he's got to do what he's got to do to stay back in the game, brother, do it. Get off the fucking internet, asshole. What the fuck are you doing? Get off the internet. Take the ads down, suspend your Facebook page. You could leave your website up or even put your website under construction. Do what you got, but Jesus Christ. But 2 o'clock in the morning ranting letters at some of your best friends and your best paying professional relationships because you put yourself in this position is not the way forward. All right, I gotta get off this.
Yeah,
I gotta get off it.
yep.
So I almost bought.
I'm gonna close it with.
Please.
I hope Larry finds some help that will help him get through this, and things work out the best that they can for him. And I wish him the best, and I hope it works out in the end.
Yes, thank you. You know what? That needs to be said. Please pray for Larry, like for real. Pray for
We
Larry.
have all made mistakes, so I hope he gets the help that he possibly needs, and things will work out if he just keeps plugging along.
Just stop making mistakes. Okay. So, wow, we've been going for 50 minutes. I did not know we would talk about Larry Vickers for 50 minutes. I didn't tell you this. I almost bought a Steyr AUG last night. I am actually on my to-do list, on my to-buy list. Is how Steyr makes those? They make the white Steyr. The white ones. Are you there? Did I lose you? Maybe you're coughing. Steyr makes. If you're talking, I can't hear you. Steyr makes the. They make the AUG gun, and they make one in white. And oh, okay. I see. You're texting me saying the mic is bad. Well, it records locally, so we'll be fine. So they make a Steyr a Steyr AUG in white, and they're a company. I can't remember which one it was. They had a sale last night, and I was like, holy smokes, they're doing it in white, and it's a company called Gun Prime, and I guess they're selling them for $1,500. But unfortunately, at the last minute, I realized that the guns that they were selling are the NATO magazine versions. Did you see those?
Okay. I have not seen those, but so I'm guessing you're going to the place where the mags are probably going to be hard or very expensive to get.
Yeah, I mean, if we're going to get a Steyr AUG, as a reference gun, we're going to shoot it and we're going to experience it. We want the AUG experience. Like if we were buying Steyr, if we were getting, post dealer samples of Steyr AUGs for our SWAT team, then sure, we would get them with the NATO Stenag magazine format, because that's what everybody's running and we live in America. But as a reference gun and as experiential gun, I don't want one that takes the AR mags. I want the one that takes the AUG mags. So unfortunately, we didn't buy the Steyr AUG. The other gun that we're going to be buying is a bunch of those French. I think they're called PA-50s. They're 9mm service pistols. They came into the country. We're going to be buying one of those while they're available in abundance. We're probably going to do it today or tomorrow. They're being brought in by Old Western Scrounger or Navy Arms in West Virginia. The same people who sold us our FRF2 sniper rifle, French sniper rifle. So
okay.
And we also have listeners who are buying the scopes from SCROME in France. And SCROME emailed us this morning, 5 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, 5 a.m., and saying that they did receive our payment that we had made on like October 26th. We wired it. So they came in today on the 6th and said that they had received our money. And they had warned us it would take at least a week to confirm that they had received our wire. So hopefully some of you folks who've been reaching out to me, saying, can we connect? Can we reach out to SCROME on your behalf? If you have not still heard from SCROME by 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time today, Monday, email me again, and I will take your name and I will reach out to SCROME and find out if they have your money. They have told me unofficially that they're not gonna be drop dead dickheads on the October 31st payment thing. So especially if you got 50% down, they're just they're trying to herd the cats. So if you're having trouble sending in your second half of your payment, we'll figure it out. I'll help a brother out. We're going to get that done. Let's see what else is there. Oh, I know. And more gun drama. While we haven't talked, did you hear about the?
You are officially on the bad influence list with my wife, by the way.
Oh well, we're going through guns that you're not going to be buying. Um, did you hear about the gun range in Southern California that has now officially banned P320s? Safety list,
I have.
thumb safety list P320s off their property.
Oh, they whacked the thumb safety models too?
No, just apparently the word is, I mean, I haven't actually talked to them, but the word is basically the ones that do not have the thumb safety that they have.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah, and so apparently they had an event. They shoot USPSA at this range, and the rumor is, I haven't confirmed it, but the rumor is there have been a number of P320s that have gone off at times that maybe the owner, maybe it's obvious or maybe it's not obvious, but there's some debate as to whether it was a commanded or uncommanded discharge. That's the best way I can say it. And apparently this last one, the rumor is that it happened when the gun was in the holster. The gun went off and actually nicked the guy's foot. Didn't I don't think it crippled him, but it did take a piece. And I think that was the final straw, and this gun range is like no more 320s on this property without thumb safeties, and that's another crisis for SIG. It's like the last time we saw something like this. That was the what was the holster everybody was all shitty on? Do you remember?
The Blackhawk Serpas.
Yeah, the Serpas. That's right. Yeah. So do you have a?
And I actually had a couple of them, and I wound up getting rid of them. And kind of circling back, they kind of came to my attention, the issues with them, because Larry Vickers had actually forbid them from being used in his classes. And there were several tier one operators in the civilian world that were running training classes that was kind of being organized by a company out of Virginia Beach. So I was able to look at different curriculums and requirements and comparing and decided where I wanted to go. And that was one of the things in the Vickers syllabus was no Serpa holsters. So I started doing a little research and started playing with mine a little bit. And there were a number of issues with them. So that was a design issue. That's a bad holster. That's not misuse or operator error. It's a junk holster.
Yeah, I don't remember Larry banning the Serpa, but I remember him banning AIWB. But my experience with the Serpa holsters, well, number one is we have to acknowledge that there were a lot of military people that were issued Serpa holsters.
Mm-hmm.
It actually was a military issue holster. You would see them on across chest rigs and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Like you'd see them upon or plate carriers, and because they lock in and you could get it with your right hand. I have a story. I'm not going to name where I used to work and the deal with it, but this was swirling, and legal at that department was really hot to write up a no SERPA. What they did is they didn't ban the SERPA holster, but they were wanting to write up a special waiver that people who were going to run SERPA holsters had to sign this waiver. And basically the waiver said, and not so many words, but I double dog dare you. We warned you about this fucking thing, and if you sue us, we're going to cut your balls off. Sign here. It basically is what it was. And what the final straw was, one of my coworkers, a fellow pistol instructor, very talented instructor and shooter. No one knows who he is nationally. And he's a Glock guy, shooting Glock. He shot a Glock 19. I remember his Glock 19. He just shot the same gun all the time, Glock 19. He had 30,000 rounds for this little Glock 19, and he is fast, and he was telling me. He said, "Man," he says, I had an incident with the SERPA, and I know exactly what the problem is." He's like, "I wasn't against them. I thought they were fine holsters, but what it was is he's trying to shoot as fast as he can, and he's with the timers, because then he's an instructor, and it's about building skills. And what he did, he said he almost shot himself with the SERPA. He said he went to draw the gun, and he fouled the draw somehow. It wasn't a perfect hand grip on the gun. And so I don't remember the sequence of events, but what ended up the fouled draw or the fouled hand position, he is either trying to grab the gun harder to clean up his grip, but what that subsequently ends up doing is he's pushing on that button, and he's running it. He's already committed. It's like throwing a punch. The punch is halfway through the air, and something's gone wrong, and he's trying to make a modification in the milliseconds, and he's trying to work that button, and I don't think it was clear to him that the gun was already unlocked, or if he was pushing on the button so hard trying to get it to unlock, he ends up pulling the gun out, and his trigger finger dropped onto the trigger. He literally was like, "Oh fuck." It happened so fast. He was like, "That's what happens." And once legal heard that incident we had on our where I used to work, their range, they basically shut that fucking holster down. I don't think nobody would ever sign this waiver, because this attorney, we ended up getting cross. This attorney, was a big litigation guy, and this fucking waiver was basically like, I mean, if you sign this thing, you are so dumb. You could have. You could have died on the range if you'd signed this waiver and been like, "Yeah, fuck you." It's just. It was crazy, and it just nobody, especially with we would have a group come in, and maybe from an entity that was using some of these holsters, and anything they have to sign, they have to run it by their solicitor or their city government, and they would see this waiver, and it would It not only would the dudes not run the SERPAs, in many instances, it would bring the issue to light with organizations, and they would start pulling the SERPAs. It was interesting to see. It really was. So,
one of the other issues I saw with the SERPA, and I saw this firsthand actually, we live in a very snowy environment in the winter. Snow, cold, blowing snow. Winters can be pretty harsh here.
Mm-hmm.
And I was seeing a lot of reports of stuff getting wedged up under that finger release, and to the point where you would have to basically take a Dremel tool to get your pistol out of the holster. We had an officer at a local department that was carrying one on duty and was working a traffic accident during a blizzard, and basically got enough snow and debris frozen under that tab that he could not get the pistol out until he took it inside, and it thawed completely out. It had froze completely over. I'd seen other cases, where dirt, debris, sand, whatever had gotten under that finger tab, And it was not a horribly uncommon experience to have to get a Dremel tool out to basically free your pistol from the holster.
I had forgotten about that, but before we instituted the waiver system, I remember our senior instructors actually demoing and talking about that issue with the Serpa holster, but they would still allow the holster. They'd be like, by the way, you folks running the Serpas, you need to be aware of this and this and this and this. That I actually now remember, but I was so written off that that was a known issue even before the thing. Who was there was a guy, he was a well-known shooter because he was on television. He was an OPATA, Ohio Police Officers Training Academy Association person. He was in upstate Ohio. Chris Serino? Is that his name? Cernio? Chris, do you remember him?
It doesn't ring a bell.
If he was on maybe Top Shot, one of these shows. He actually shot himself with a Serpa holster. They kept it kind of quiet. I mean, as quiet as they could. It just wasn't like the industry knew and people knew. Like I think it seriously hurt him. I remember he got kind of skinnier after that. But yeah, he shot himself. He's a SWAT trainer, whatever guy, competitive shooter, masterclass. He wasn't some schmo that that wasn't handy with the steel. And I don't know if he was in a mat or he was in a range. He was somewhere. He was running a Serpa and shot himself. And that one never got a lot of publicity. I didn't find out for years that he had shot himself.
Yeah.
Years later.
I still can't believe you can walk into Bass Pro, Cabela's, and they're still on the shelf.
Are they? I didn't know that.
Yeah, you can walk right in and buy Serpas. I can run an hour north and walk into Cabela's and buy a Serpa for a Glock 17 right off the shelf right now.
I did not know that. I mean, I would have figured. I mean, shit. I don't know. You figured that would have been pulled at some point or somebody. Well, you know what? I mean, I guess in defense of Serpa, has anyone ever actually sued? Is it Phobos? Is it Phobos who makes the Serpa?
Blackhawk.
Blackhawk makes a Serpa.
Yeah.
So it was. I get him confused. I remember where I used to work. Another thing that the training cadre would do is in combatives, just basic defensive tactics stuff. Our cadre, whenever we would see a Phobos holster, and this is mostly for civilian stuff, not for any law enforcement. I mean, I don't know. You might occasionally see a detective or somebody wearing, a plainclothes guy wearing a Phobos holster. They would literally snap that holster with the gun in it off their body. You remember that?
Yep, I did that with a Serpa. I was working for a company as their director of security, and I was putting one of my officers through a handgun retention course. Mm-hmm. And he was wearing a Serpa, and this was actually about a month before I discovered what I did about Vickers' opinion on him, and doing basic handgun retention, and I grabbed his pistol, and the belt clip actually completely broke off the holster itself. I pulled the holster and the gun away from him, and parts of it fell to the floor. It was completely jumped. There was no screwing it back together or anything. And it did not take much.
Yeah, I mean, just
a junk design across the board.
Yeah,
I'm guessing why they're still around is probably because Serpa Blackhawk probably has some type of a disclaimer. If used properly, it's a safe holster. If your finger engages the trigger on the draw, that's operator error. The holster's not discharging the firearm, so maybe that's why they still get away with it. Certainly not a holster that I would wear, and the few classes that I teach, I don't allow them in my class just because of all that. So.
Oh, really? Okay. Even you're shitting on them. Are you gonna ban thumb safety list 320s?
That's bait. You're baiting me there because I've got questions about mine.
Well,
I
yours has a
can.
thumb safety. Don't you have the M18, M17?
I've got a 17, uh, and I really, really like this pistol.
Uh-huh.
I like the idea of having a thumb safety.
Mm-hmm.
The problem I run into with younger shooters is they think that thumb safety is a disability. They think it takes too much time. It's another added step under stress. Uh, for me, having a striker fired pistol with a safety on it is the best of both worlds when it comes to striker fired guns.
I don't
Uh,
disagree.
I've had several 320s. This is my first one with the thumb safety. I got all excited. I had an X5 Legion 320 for a while, and it did not take me very long to get rid of that. I have three classes of handguns that I possess. Number one are the handguns that just give me the warm and fuzzies. First, second, third generation Smiths, the old Smith wheel guns.
Sure.
I keep them. I get them because I like them. The second category is my hunting handguns. So, my big 44 mags, 454s, stuff like that. They serve a certain purpose. The only other type of handgun I carry is stuff that I use for work. And I like to carry top tier stuff for work because my life and the life of others depends on it. So I got that X5 Legion with, it's got the flared mag and, the better sights, and it's optic compatible. And it took me about one range session to figure out that the trigger was so light and so crisp that the only safe way to utilize that Legion was if it was never put in a holster, always pointed down range, and when not on target, setting on a range bench. I could not come up with a holster that I felt would be safe to carry this gun in for any purpose whatsoever, whether it was range games, everyday carry, or, like a duty carry gun. So I got rid of it because it served no purpose for me. That got me out of 320s for quite a while. And then I stumbled across this M17, and we've talked back and forth offline. I put the Wilson grip module on it and the tungsten weight set, and really love this gun, and have not heard any horror stories about ghost discharges on
Yeah,
the
I have
thumb
heard of
safety models.
I have heard of no issues that I'm aware of. I'm not saying this is this proves it, but I am not aware of any uncommanded discharges with a thumb safety, basically the military M17, M18.
So if anybody out there listening does have some type of story or documentation or evidence, I would be very interested in hearing about it. I'm not particularly nervous carrying this weapon, but with all the controversy surrounding the 320, it does make me, rethink things at times. So, yeah, if anybody out there has any stories on the M17, M18, I'd like to hear about them.
Yeah, the thing is with the thumb safety on these striker guns is, I mean, your younger shooters can obviously, it does slow you down and is a liability because you've never run one. And so, what you basically have to get to training wise, and I am like this. I shoot 1911s all the time. It's my default gun. I mean, I carried one for most of 19 and a half years. And then, I went to a striker gun. Like, I was kind of being encouraged to go to a striker gun. And like one of the things I was like, good idea, Ferry. Here's my journey. I was like, oh, because I was carrying a 45 single stack 1911. And it's like, okay, all right, let's take a look at these M&P guns. I remember this gun was tan, and it was an M&P. It was 45. It had thumb safety, and I think it had a 10-round magazine. And it was like ergonomic. And it's like, okay, well, this could be cool. Like, I get two more rounds and whatever, and this and that. And literally got the gun in. I remember like taking out of the box and working, because I got the handle one with the thumb safety because no one wanted the thumb safety. And the thumb safety was such shit on this gun, was almost like a limp noodle, that I don't think I kept the gun a week. And we're like, I go get rid of this fucking thing. So I got rid of that. And then what else was it I messed with? I can't remember. But obviously ended up going back to 1911. But with the 1911 and a really light trigger, a lot of people don't understand is the reason you can get away with the light triggers, even forgetting that there's a grip safety on the traditional 1911, which is deactivates the gun. You've got the thumb safety, which is, works as a block. Okay, works as a safe, it's an item that'll keep the gun from just discharging. And then you've got a half cock notch that, even if the gun has got a crazy light trigger on it, it's got a crazy, crazy, crazy light trigger for some. Let's say someone went too far, they stoned it too much. If it just drops, you still got the half cock. You've got the grip safety, the thumb safety, the half cock, and then the trigger. I mean, it's like there's a lot. It's actually a lot of people think 1911s weren't safe. They're actually an argument could certainly be made that they're the most safe of handguns made. Certainly, if you're the kind of person that makes the argument that a Glock has a ton of safeties on it, if that is your position with the firing pin block and the blade, then that that logic certainly says that the 1911 is way, way safer because there's a lot more going on there. The
Except for
320
the idiots putting rubber bands around the grip safety.
Hey now, like my X9 doesn't have a grip safety on it. And I remember, well, the thing is you need to get your grip safety tuned. That's what they call it now, tuning your grip safety. Most grip safety, you have to like basically make it so if you just even touch that thing, it's deactivated. But do you remember Novak used to sell a product. It was a beaver tail and a mainspring housing that was all one piece. And
Yep.
You would put it in your gun, and it basically eliminated the grip safety. And I think they called it if I remember, it was called the Answer. And you could order this. I'm pretty certain you could order this, or maybe they would install it. They don't sell it anymore. The only way to get this product now from Novak is if you order a gun from them with it installed from from the ground up. It's a Novak gun, and they build the gun for liability reasons. But the Doc has a 320 M17 with also the Wilson we got from the module, and because he still does some stuff with one of these government. I don't want to say who they are, but they show up with M17s, and I work the gun. The thing is, the thumb safety on the M17 is not nearly as it's not bad. But, the thumb safety on the 1911s has had 100 years to get perfected. And the thumb safety on the M17 is just not quite even, not quite. It's not even nearly as just ergonomically comfortable and easy to either knock off or not knock off or re-engage as a true 1911. I do know Doc is kind of getting tired of his. I don't know. He put some kind of hollow sun red dot or something on top of his M17, and I remember he was saying something. I don't remember if it was he was tired of the red dot. He couldn't really get his brain to work with the red dot, or maybe he was not even that interested in the M17 anymore. If he gets rid of that M17, we'll just take it from him. We'll buy it from him. We're not going to take it. We're going to buy it. We'll buy it from him, and just because we could use one. And it'll be interesting to see what happens with the thumb safety and M17 going forward. Well, I'll tell you what, we've been going for so long, and I actually have another meeting at 2:00, and so we don't want this to be a 2-hour podcast. So I like to start doing more frequent podcasts again. That's kind of the whole point of moving the armory and making the changes. So how about we just do the police blotter and we call it? Is that fair?
Sounds good. We'll get into the next podcast about the rifle. I was never been so more disappointed in all my life. So a
Yeah,
little
maybe.
teaser for the next one.
Yeah, maybe we'll try to do one. Today is Monday. Maybe we'll do one. We'll do one Thursday or Friday for sure, and it'll be ready for Saturday's newsletter. So basically,
Yeah,
every week
sounds
we'll
good.
have one. So the first article out of the police blotter is comes out of Alabama. And this falls under the police blotter because it is a call for service. An Alabama mayor shot himself dead after being outed for, quote, dressing as quote, curvy girl who wrote erotic fiction about murdering real life business owner and revealed plans to steal her identity. Let me read that again. Alabama mayor, a mayor in Alabama, was a secret trans dresser on the internet who billed herself. I'm being respectful. Billed her just don't use the bathroom. Billed herself as quote curvy girl. Also was a writer of erotic fiction who wrote a story about murdering a trans person who murders a real life business owner in this town and then assumes this person's identity to be a real girl. And this person got the thing on top, Smith Station mayor. So this is Alabama. The town's called Smith Station. Say that fast 3 times. The mayor's name is F.L. Copeland. F.L. Copeland. Also had a nickname. You want to take a guess as to what Mayor Copeland's nickname was? Like everyone didn't call the mayor FL, and they weren't obviously calling him Curvy Girl. Do you know what Mayor Copeland's name was? We all had nicknames in the South. I will not share mine here on pod. Do you
I'm
know?
afraid to ask.
It's Bubba. So
But you're going to
Bubba,
tell me anyway.
Mayor FL Bubba Copeland. So Bubba, so literally, we're like Bubba's got a and it's a terrible story, killing yourself. Dude, just go be a trans person. Like what the fuck? But Bubba, come on, Bubba. You know what, Bubba? No, like but like what's the Forrest Gump thing? Oh, Bubba. The second story is this is a police blotter story because I think the video is just unbelievable. And it's a crime story, but it's really has implications for, in my opinion, Donald Trump. I have gotten on this podcast numerous times, and I've said, that they've stolen the election in reference to Trump because 2020, because of they suppressing the vote, suppressing stories that were unfavorable to Biden, and making up stories that were unfavorable to Trump, and there's all of that. And I've said, where is the evidence? Where are these ballots? Where is this? Where's that? It's like, because they're counting these ballots and doing these audits in these states, and it's like, how come they haven't found a bunch of ballots with fake? Like I never voted for Donald Trump, or I never voted for Joe Biden, or like this person didn't vote for Joe Biden. This person's been dead for 5 years. Where are all of these audited fake ballots? So that's always been an issue that I've had. Well, different election, same story. Judge orders new primary election after seeing videos showing possible ballot stuffing. This is not possible ballot stuffing. There is surveillance video of drop boxes in a town in Connecticut in Bridgeport for Bridgeport's primary for mayoral election. They have video surveillance of at least 2 people, possibly a third. At least 2 of them appear to be city employees. The third one might be a city employee who are literally with handfuls and handfuls, thick gobs of ballots that they're shoving into these ballot boxes, these unattended ballot boxes for a mayoral race in Bridgeport. And it's like, okay, hold on here. These people, it's like, well, they're gonna redo this election. It's like, oh, we're gonna redo the election, or maybe we're gonna redo the primary. We're gonna have the same election. It's like, here's a story, here's a resolution. Let's just move along. And I'm just like, whoa, 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 whoa. No, we're not moving along. If I lived up there, you wouldn't be fucking moving along. You'd be like, all right. So these people, you're saying these people who are ballot stuffing, it looks like hundreds of ballots in this little town just started doing this yesterday? And then it's like, okay, well, who do they work for? They seem to be city employees, at least two of them. And then it's like, okay, well, wait a minute. Who are the ballots? How come we can't see who the ballots were? Well, we have the right to the secret ballot. Not if it's fake, it's not. Not if it's involved in a criminal conspiracy. It's evidence. And I'd be like, okay, pull out all these fake fucking ballots and start walking down with the police and the investigators and the Federal Election Commission if we have to, and the FBI, and let's go door to door to door and be like, did you fucking vote for this? Did you vote twice? What's going on here? Oh, I didn't vote. I never vote. Or Bubba's been dead since he killed himself. But they don't want to do that. They don't want to do that. And this story to me gives a lot more credence to some of the arguments that Donald Trump has made about the 2020 election, because they've got ballots at this point that are fake as fuck, and they're not even, seem to be willing to run these down. Third police blotter, unfortunately comes out of Cincinnati, and in a neighborhood called Cheviot. I'm not unfamiliar with Cheviot. A woman was killed in Cheviot home on Sunday, so yesterday, and a man told officers and medical professionals it happened because, quote, he sat on her head, unquote. Thomas Toothman, 55, is charged with one count of first-degree murder. According to the affidavit filed in Hamilton County Court, Cheviot police were called to a home on Lovell Avenue around 1:30 a.m. Sunday morning through reports of a person not breathing. When officers got there, they found a woman face down on the couch in the living room of the house. Fire and medical personnel attempted life-saving measures on the woman, but when they were unsuccessful, the Hamilton County Coroner's Office was called, and they determined that her neck had been broken. And it's like, okay, is this a murder? Is this a lie? Is this a murder and a lie, or is this a sex thing that went wrong? I don't know. It just seems I've seen a lot of stuff in my life, and I've never heard of a dude sitting on a woman to kill her. I don't know. Just thought it was interesting, something different for the police blotter. Well, this wraps up episode 321 of the John1911 Podcast. If you want to see different stories or pictures or links of everything we discussed, please go to the website at John1911.com. That's JOHN1911.com. Remember, it's all about shooting guns and having fun, everybody. Have a good day.
Have a good week, everybody.